Hello and welcome to Ruth Reacts to Books. I'm your host, Ruxie Ruth McGouth. This is season 2, episode 42, the answer to life's ultimate question. And today I am going to be reviewing The Bishop's Tale by Margaret Frazer. And this is the 4th book in the series. So the first book in the series is called The Novice's Tale. So I always like to, when I have the first book in the series, show that to everyone. So The Novice's Tale is book 1. And I don't know that I have a Ruth Reacts to this book, but when I did read this book, I gave it 4 stars. So I really liked The Novice's Tale. So that's book 1. So start with book 1. Although honestly, you can read these books. They don't really build particularly on each other. Each one is definitely a standalone mystery. There's not a lot that kind of carries between other than the main character. If you've ever watched the British show Cadfael, which is about a monk that solves mysteries, it's very similar. So this is about a nun that solves mysteries. So I've got my spooky nun for Halloween out. So here we go. This is The Bishop's Tale, book 4 in the series. And so I'll read the back of the book. I'll tell you what I rated the book. I'll tell you what I liked, what I didn't like, and I'll tell you what food I have given you a recipe for and why I've related that to the book and why I'm wearing these nails for this book. So let's get started. Morning darkened a medieval manor, and so did murder. Death, the pious say, is the great mystery, and Sister Frazer finds it puzzling indeed. She has come to Ewelme Manor to grieve for her uncle. Bishop Beaufort arrives to mourn his old friend. Neither expected querulous Sir Clement Sharp to stand at the funeral feast, dare God to strike him down, and then collapse, since other guests have stopped on the same meat and wine without ill effect. All believe the Lord's hand smote Sir Clement. The wily bishop, however, secretly orders Frazer to snoop from the kitchens to the chapel for an unusual poison. But the clever nun has her eyes open for something else, a killer with venomous hatred or a diabolical love. And this even says on the back, in the tradition of Ellis Peters' Brother Cadfael novels, Sister Frazer is simply good at discerning the mysteries of the soul and solving the crimes of the human heart. So other people have had the same thought as I did, that it's similar to the Cadfael. I didn't know those were books, but when I was younger, I watched the Cadfael series with my mom and grandfather. So I only gave this book 2.75 stars, which I know I feel guilty when I do that, but it doesn't mean I didn't like it. Because if I give a book 2 stars, it means I didn't like it. If I give it 3, it means I liked it. So I liked it more than I didn't like it, but I didn't love it for sure. And I didn't actually super like it, which is odd because the other books in this so far, this is book 4, and the other books so far, 1, 2, and 3, I gave book 1 4 stars, book 2 5 stars, and book 3 5 stars. So I really, really like the series so far. And then this book just really fell flat for me. So let me tell you a little bit more. I don't do I don't do spoilers, so I'm not going to tell you what's in the book. And I won't spoil anything, so don't worry about that. But what I like about it, well, the main character, Sister Frazer, I like her. She's pretty spunky for a nun. And, a 14th century person, or 13th, 14th, 15th, I don't know. They're in the 1400s, whatever century that is. I like the historical details. So her uncle is Thomas Chaucer, who you find out about in the books. So Thomas Chaucer is her uncle. So she's at his house, Ewelme, which is a historical details. They do a lot of good. It's definitely historical fiction from the 1400s, and I like the historical details. Now, I don't know that Sister Frazer is a real character, but Thomas Chaucer obviously is a real person who lived in history. And then in the book, Thomas Chaucer's relatives are there, so his wife Matilda really existed, and then his daughter Alice existed, and the people that she was married to. So they were talking about like her first husband and her second husband, and those are real people who really lived and who she was really married to in the real world. So I like that they have kind of historical details that are accurate in the book. And they talk about Ewelme, which is, I think it's the town, but also then the manor house that he lived in, that Chaucer lived in, where she is staying when she goes, and then all of this ensues in this novel. So throughout the books, they take place in different places. So, like one of them takes place like in the nunnery where she lives, or the monastery, or whatever it is. And then some of them take place other places when she's visiting other people. So this one happens to take place in Ewelme, where she's going to visit her family. I don't know if I really liked the character of Bishop Beaufort. They talked about how he was in it. I don't know if he was real or not, but I didn't look that up. He was kind of a snob. I guess he was important to the story because he pushed the story forward, but I don't know if he was a good, I guess he was important to the story. So that was why he's in the sort of liked column. But what I didn't like, the characters in this book just felt sort of like they weren't very likable. And I tried to think back to the other 3 books, because as you may know, if you know me, I read very slowly. So it's been a long time since I've read the last 3 books, because I have a list of 25 books and I read through them. So it's going to be 25 more books before I get back to the next book of this. So it's been a while, and I'm trying to remember but I do think that there's a lot more likable characters in the other stories that I found in this one. Because really, there's her, and then she has a traveling partner from her nunnery who's with her. And those are the 2 people who are like the most likable in this book. And the rest of the characters I found quite unlikable. The mystery also just felt super dull and boring. And I was like, just really, like just trying to get through it. And it really did not, just felt like it was dragging on for me. They also talked about how this person, Sir Clement Sharp, he's querulous. That's how they describe him on the back of the book. Like, he was unliked, right? And so nobody really liked him and cared about him in the book. So it's also hard to hear about people when... And that was kind of a plot point, too, that she was looking after, trying to figure out who killed someone that nobody really cared about. So that's kind of a point of the book, but I also thought it made it tough to have the reader engaged. So yeah, it was not very exciting. And even afterwards, like when I was preparing to do this, I had to like remind myself, like even though I just finished this book, literally over like in this week, I finished it maybe on Sunday, like last Sunday, and now it's Saturday. So like within the last week, I finished this book, and I was like, oh gosh, how to remind myself about it. And I only just finished it. So that's not a good sign. So yeah, hopefully that's not a sign of things to come, because I really did, like I said, loved the first 3 books. But this one just for me was a miss. So I will keep reading the series though. This series, interestingly enough, how I stumbled upon it. I moved to a different town about 1.5 years ago, but the town I lived in before that had a library where every now and then they would just have random books set out that you could just have. I don't know if they just got a lot of donations or what, but, and so sometimes when I would be there browsing, I would come across, and I came across about 5 books from the series, and I thought, ooh, I like series. I'll just pick these up. And so I picked them up, and they happened to be, I think one of them was maybe this one, like the first in the series, or maybe they were later in the series. And so I ended up going back and getting the first couple and starting the series. And that's how I started on this series. And I'm glad I did, because I like them a lot. And I love mysteries. Mysteries is one of my favorite genres. So that's this book for you. The Bishop's Tale, Sister Fervice Medieval Mystery. As for the food that I have selected, we went with traditional British meat pies. So in the thing you hear about how in the dinner they're having this quarrelsome fellow asks God to strike him down, and they're all eating dinner together, and what they're eating is meat pies. And so it's a traditional British food. I actually had it at one of my weddings, and delicious food, and the vegetarian version, I will put in there a little note about how to make it vegetarian, or I'll find a vegetarian one to put in there as well. Love them, delicious, a very British food, goes along well with this book. And then for my nails, so you can see that I got red and white stripes this week. So when I was looking, I wanted to do something to do with Thomas Chaucer, since he is a main character in this book. It's his death that everyone is mourning, as she said she was going to mourn her uncle's death. So I looked up Thomas Chaucer, and this is his coat of arms. So that's the Chaucer coat of arms. And so that's why I went with the red and white stripes for this week. And this was a nail set that was, it's actually called Elf Stockings. It was from last year's Christmas, actually. And I've worn it, I've gotten lots of use out of this one. So used up the very last of this set that I was holding on to. So I'm very excited that I got a whole nail set out of it. I was worried that I wouldn't have quite enough, but I had just enough to do another set with that nail. So I'm very excited about that. I hope you all have a good week. And I love everyone, and I will talk to you soon. See you next week for episode 43. Bye.